Yes, everybody, you know what time it is. Trying a big experiment here, trying a members only live podcast. Dave is fresh off a hike with the Outlad, so we're kind of with a bit of a mixed schedule here. So we're trying something different, trying a bit of an experiment here. We're going to go for a live podcast of some kind. We weren't even able to line up a guest, so things are a bit, I wouldn't say out of sorts, but we're just trying something a bit different here. So we're going to try a bit of an experiment ahead of what will be something in the future. I believe it's going to be kind of a mailbag podcast of sorts that is going to be for you guys, the members only. So I guess this could be seen as a bit of an experiment ahead of time for that. I did line up some pretty decent questions, I think, ahead of this one today. But Dave, fresh off a hike, fresh off maybe some Spurs revelation of some sort, or were you just like maybe you told me in the back end, just kind of sound like you were just getting kind of dumped on, by the rain. So did that help in any way, thinking about Spurs or not help at all?
Look, it was a good hike. Yeah, we spoke about Spurs for sure, me and the old lad, like we always do. But look, do you know what, Jack? The rain brought a bit of freshness to it. It was nice. It woke you up for sure. I actually prefer being out there in the rain because when you're doing it in the sun and you're already hot and the sun's beating down on your head, it becomes absolutely grueling. However, when you're finished or on your way back down is when the trouble starts because your hoodie starts to get heavy
Mm,
and you just want to get home at that point once you start getting soaked through. But it was good. It was enjoyable and
yeah.
fresh.
And everybody, if you are surprised by this, don't be, because it is, definitely an experiment. There is an explanation for it. Ribsy85 saying, "What's all this then?" And Jason Bell saying, "Whoa, this is a bit of a surprise." Well, hopefully it becomes a bit of a regularity. Hopefully it becomes a regular occurrence because we do want to reward you guys in some sort of manner. So we've decided our best, way of maybe doing that is experiment with a bit of a live podcast here. But might as well just get straight into it here. If you can, please smash that like button. But I did line up some questions ahead of this one. And the first one has to do with a certain Gift Orban and also Brennan Johnson kind of being linked with Spurs, but maybe more with Gift Orban. I guess that race isn't happening anytime soon. It looks like Tottenham Hotspur are adamant that they do not want to pay 30 million euros for Gift Orban. Spurs have been shocked at the fee demanded by Ghent, especially as they consider Orban a transfer more for the long term rather than just a short term fix. So I guess really my confusion comes from this, Dave, is that did they really want him in the first place then? Or does this maybe suggest something that maybe we have more confidence in Richarlison than maybe what was led on? Because I think the moment that Harry Kane was sold, we were seeing all these links to all these different strikers basically across the planet. But right now, it looks like Spurs are really not all that adamant about bringing in Gift Orban for more than 30 million euros. It looks like they're preparing a bid for Brennan Johnson, but everybody's telling me that that will be kind of more of a winger type signing, maybe less of a striker type signing. So I think kind of two things in one here, Dave. A bit of a surprise that maybe Spurs are putting so much faith in Richarlison, and also do you think this is the right move, maybe that Spurs are, I guess, not bringing in a guy like Gift Orban straight away? What do you make of kind of the recent news here on the striker situation?
Look, Jack, I think they're going to pursue with Richardson anyway, right? They outlaid 60 million on him, but I think the whole idea is to bring someone else in. But the fact that we're scrambling around this late in the transfer window shows that we were not prepared for Harry Kane to leave, despite what people inside the club were telling us. So I don't believe it, otherwise we would have had a replacement lined up. Also, we can't move in this transfer market until the likes of Lloris, who we're going to speak about, Endon Bellend, and also Moonhead, until they go. And they don't look like they want to go anywhere right now. So we need, and we were told by Ange Postecoglou, no more incomings until outgoings happen. But look, when it comes to Gift Orban, Jack, we also have to remember there's plenty of times under, with the way Paratici used to operate, that, you'd be going, you could see yourself in for five, six, seven different players, loads of different names. But all of a sudden, someone that hasn't really been mentioned comes in out of
Yeah.
left field. For instance, David Raya, but Vicario comes in out of left field. Ericsson last year, but Basuma comes in out of left field. Tommy Asu out under Nuno, but
Hmm.
Emerson comes in out of left field. So there's a pattern of this. So it wouldn't surprise me to see someone else come in out of left field. But also, I think 30 million is too much as well, Jacko. For
Hmm.
me personally, I think you like the thing is my fears are coming back to haunt me as well, Jack. I said the fact that we sort of left it so late to sell Harry Kane, we put ourselves in a position now. No matter what striker we go after, there's a tax on it. Not only because we've got the Harry Kane money and every club knows that, but also because what club wants to part with their star striker when the season's just got underway. Not every club is as stupid as us. They recognise the value of having someone that scores goals on a regular basis. But for me, I think 30 million is too much. And, the thing is with Gift Orban, Jack, we can bring him in right now because he's 21 years of age and he doesn't have to be registered. Players 21 or under do not have to be registered. They can be a part of the under 21 team and you can play them as much as you like. So, that sort of gets us out of a hole in that situation. But look, I think it's a combination of things. I think the price is too much, and I think Tottenham don't want to pay that for a 21-year-old who's only done it in Norway and Belgium.
Yeah.
The last thing, for me, how true do they believe in his talents if they're not willing to take that punt? For me, it seems like a gamble, like I've always said it was, but also the fact that we can't really operate until we get players out the door anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot of roadblocks at once here, but what I have been able to learn from this, I feel like, Dave, is perhaps there's more faith in Richarlison than maybe there is actually faith from the fan base. Maybe Ange, as well as the club, is showing a lot of faith in Big Richie here, because if they were maybe skeptical about whether he could really replace Harry Kane, you would think that these rumors around, let's say, a Vlahovic, a Kolo Muani, or even if Gift Orban, we had this conversation yesterday, was their, main choice because the numbers or the database model has told them, that's what they should go for. The fact that they're kind of, cooling their interest on, one of their main targets here, and they're also kind of maybe preparing a bid for what plenty have said is maybe more of a winger type signing, makes me think that there's a lot of faith here in Richarlison to be able to be kind of Ange's number one striker here. And of course, there's plenty of time, and we should, as I have, done on my runs around Prospect Park, but have shown, Richie a lot of faith, and I believe that he can do it. But at the same time, I sort of thought the opposite. I kind of thought Spurs were going to bring in somebody of some kind that was going to challenge Richie kind of straight away, that was just going to be there to pick from, because that's sort of what most teams maybe do, or that's just sort of what the conventional wisdom would be. You sell a guy like Harry Kane, even if you do have another striker like Richarlison, you think about bringing in another one just in case an injury occurs, or maybe he's just not fit and firing in the way that you want him to. But maybe there's more of a belief that either Richarlison can do it, or there's already someone else in the team that can fill in too in the middle. Maybe Sonny or a Perisic or a Kulusevski. We're not really sure who's going to be that guy who could fill in through the middle, but probably most likely is Sonny, I imagine, would be moved in through the middle. So that's what all I would say is from this bit of news here, Dave, is I don't know if you kind of get where I'm coming from, but I think we could learn something from maybe this Gift Orban interest taking a bit of a sidestep, and then this Brendan Johnson interest taking, a bit more, heat and, kind of rising up a bit. So I think that has to do with maybe a lot of faith in Richarlison, and also maybe faith that a guy like Sonny could maybe play through the middle, or someone else maybe can play through the middle at some stage. Who knows, a Dane Scarlett or a Valise.
Yeah. Look, for me, Jack, I think, look, the club have to persist with Richarlison, right? They don't want to get themselves into another Ndombele situation where they paid 60 million for a player, it hasn't worked out, but they can't ship him off the books because no one's willing to outlay the money that Tottenham are looking for compared to the output that he's showing at Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, I think they will persist with Richarlison. There's no option. You need two strikers in the Premier League. So, regardless whether if they bring in Brennan Johnson or a winger, it means Son's being moved central and he'll be competing with Richarlison up the top. But if we don't, then we have to, for me, it's either go out and get someone that's a proven goal scorer at an elite level in one of the top 5 leagues that's playing in a club at the top end of that league, or trust the talent that you've already invested in. For me, it doesn't make Gift Orban does not make sense. I get that the new database model might have thrown him up. I get that there's a potential this guy could go on and elevate his career, and he could end up, if we don't take the risk that someone like Dortmund might or Leipzig might. But being honest, they've more proven track record of developing younger players than what we do. So if we come in for some of these players, some of them might go to someone like Gift Orban might choose them over us anyway. But Jack, I'd much rather us trust the money that we've invested in Valise, the money that we've invested in Son Bell, Will Lancashire, Donnelly, Dane Scarlett. You know what I mean? Why are we just? For me, it's just clogging up the system. You've got so many strikers all in around a similar age. It does not make sense to put that outlay on a guy when, for me, I'd rather just entrust our investment and our scouting that we've already done.
Ribsy85 even says, as you said yesterday on the show, Dave, we're not even exactly hurting for young gun strikers at the moment. And I sort of felt that way when we even signed Valise. I think Valise is an interesting signing, but I sort of thought, okay, this is interesting. Spurs are kind of padding up, a lot of the young forwards. But already with Lancashire, Scarlett, Judson Bell, Jamie Donnelly, I kind of thought that Spurs had a plethora of young strikers to pick from. But I guess they want to keep it, they want to keep competition. They want to keep each other challenging, but it's an interesting one for sure. And so I don't know. I think it's an interesting case that Spurs have put so much faith in Richarlison. I guess, my runs around Prospect Park are doing some good. It looks like me and Ange are on the same page here, but also it shows that maybe, I guess there's more faith that Sonny or someone else too, in case Richarlison gets hurt or maybe just isn't actually fit and firing, is can fill in instead, or that they can at least get to January before they really have to think about bringing in a big name of some sort. I think that goes against, maybe at least according to Twitter and maybe according to some of the conversations I've had, against some of what a lot of Spurs fans have kind of said. And so that's where I've kind of coming from against on this. I feel like there's not a lot of faith in Richarlison, even though I want to keep my faith in him. I could see why a lot of people are losing faith in the guy. And then I've kind of seen a lot of sort of hope from at least the Spurs fan base that Spurs were going to bring in a Norban, or Spurs were going to bring in somebody like a Tony or whatever it could have been, some type of striker to challenge him kind of straight away. But might not be the case. Looks like it might be Brennan Johnson. So quickly, Dave, before we move on to the next subject here, and also thank you so many of you, all the members here, so many beautiful faces and names in the chat joining us. Hopefully you are appreciating getting a sneak peek ahead of time at the live podcast. But just Brennan Johnson, if it does happen, Dave, approve of the signing, skeptical of the signing, initial impressions?
No, look, I like Brennan Johnson, Jack. For me, every time I watch him, he gives it his all. That's all you can ask for from a player, a guy that gives his all, but also has a bit of quality with it. He's tricky, he can score goals. But for me, if we bring him in, it means Son's going into the middle, in my opinion. But look, with Brennan Johnson, Jack, there's still that. It's still one of them players. He still needs a bit of development. I watched the first game of the season against Arsenal, and he was put in early doors. And he ballooned it. He spurned that chance. And in big games like that, he's not going to really make much of a difference for you. Because, them big moments, he's still young, he's still nervous, and he gets, spurning them sort of opportunities. And for me, I still don't believe that's the answer. For me, we need someone that's going to deliver in them big games, in them big moments. So, again, Brendan Johnson's another one that you still have to develop. Just quickly on Richarlison, though, Jack, before you move on. What I do think, look, Spurs are going to keep Richarlison around. Whether they bring in, even if they were to bring in a Vlahovic, Jack, they're still going to keep Richarlison around this season and give him a chance to sort of prove himself. But one thing I would do with Richie, Jack, is if he's clearly struggling right now, right? And his technique is letting him down on the football pitch because he can't control the ball and everything that goes near him seems to bounce off. And players now don't really want to pass him or feed his run, stuff like that, which I can understand to a certain degree as well. But I would do what Ange sort of done at Celtic. He brought Harry Kewell in at Celtic to work with the wingers, to teach them, take the contact but keep going, like what old-fashioned wingers do, because the modern wingers, they get a bit of contact, they like to go down and get the free kick, whereas Ange brought Harry Kewell in to teach them wingers, don't go down, ride the contact and get the ball in the box. Keep the ball in play, keep playing, be relentless. For me, I think we should do something like that with Richarlison. You've got a Robbie Keane out there in the coaching world. You've got a Jermaine Defoe, who I think recently left the club with Yaya Toure, if I'm correct. For me, why not bring one of them in to work with the guy on a daily basis, work with his technique, work with his movement off the ball, runs in behind, hold up play, etc. Bring one of them in to work with the guy for 6 months, and you will end up seeing the benefits of that on the football pitch.
Yeah, for me, Brendan Johnson, if I were to answer my question on if this is the right signing for Spurs, I sort of just remember him as a guy from last season that had a real hot streak. At one stage, it felt like he was sort of kind of scoring nonstop for a few weeks or maybe a month or so. And then, I felt like sort of fell off or maybe just wasn't scoring at that same rate. I be honest, I don't expect somebody for a relegation side to be, scoring, all the time and be scoring every week. And I
Mhm.
think, having a hot streak and a hot week like that definitely would show, why there's some interest there. But at the same time, I kind of agree with some people have said. Some of the misses that, they've seen him have, some of the moments of just, kind of one-on-ones with the keeper. Sometimes I've been left a bit
Mhm.
unconvinced or not really blown away. Maybe that's the right word with Brennan Johnson. I haven't exactly been blown away by
Mhm.
him yet. I think he's young. I think he's very
Mhm.
talented. He's clearly Premier League level for his age. But I don't know if I'm exactly blown away by, his ability or what he's done so far. I think I might need to see a bit more. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's maybe where I kind of stand on the guy. I think I've just haven't exactly,
Mhm.
really thought of him as maybe one of the first names, of wingers that I think Spurs could look at, or sort of kind of other options that maybe would be goal scoring type wingers, because that's what maybe he's being brought in for, right? Is as more of a goal scoring winger type option and instead of a creative winger option. And I know Eberechi Eze has been linked with Spurs a lot, but he would be maybe more of a kind of a creative type winger. I think he can't score the goals, but he is kind of more of a guy that likes to create for others. Whereas a Brennan Johnson, I think, is a guy that likes to sort of put his head down and try to have a shot, at the keeper. So it's an interesting one. I'm still going to probably say that, maybe not totally convinced on it. Hasn't exactly blown me
Mhm.
away at any stage. But shall we go on to the next question here? Because we do have to make the best use of our time here. Let's go
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
kind of basically, you know, the Deadwood, Dave. And, some quotes have come out recently about Eric Dyer. It looks like he doesn't really want to leave. It looks like Hugo Lloris doesn't really want to leave. He's just rejected a move to Lazio. Italiano Belle, I think just the other week, rejected a move over to Galatasaray or to one of the
Mhm.
Turkish clubs. We're kind of still having the same conversation here about how the Deadwood really don't want to leave. So maybe I'll just sort of start on the Hugo Lloris situation, and I think that one's a bit unique in itself. But do you blame him for not wanting to be the second goalkeeper
Mhm.
at Lazio? I mean, whose fault is it basically that we haven't moved him on yet? Because it's obvious that Ange doesn't see him in his plans. He even basically said in the beginning of preseason, yeah, Hugo wasn't brought along because he's expected to make a move away from the club and his future isn't here anymore. And he's still here at the club, Dave. So it's somebody's fault. It's either the club's or it's Hugo's. Why hasn't this move happened?
Look, for me, Jack, I think there's a number of reasons why it's happened. I don't think Hugo Lloris sees himself as a second choice goalkeeper. I'd argue differently. I'd argue that age has caught up on him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think going to Lazio as a second choice goalkeeper probably would have been a decent move for him. I think eventually he might have got some game time there. But also, Jack, I believe we got to understand that if Hugo Lloris signs for another club and the club let him sort of, there's a year left on Hugo Lloris's contract, and I reckon Hugo Lloris maybe isn't getting the payout from the club that maybe he wants on that contract. So that's also been a factor in him turning down the Lazio
Mm-hmm.
move, in my opinion. But look, the likes of him and Dyer, especially Hugo Lloris, they're ruining their legacy at Tottenham. They're ruining all the good they've done for this football club.
Yeah.
In my opinion, let's not forget Hugo Lloris came out with words at the end of the season saying his Tottenham time was over. He himself said he wants out. He quit on us at half time against
Correct.
Newcastle when we were getting a throw-in. The club captain. And now, by delaying the process of getting out of here, and it's delaying us from being able to move on from players that are past it, it's just tarnishing their reputation and their legacy at this football club. More so in Hugo Lloris's case than Dyer, because Dyer doesn't have one. Some people may think he is, and those, for I would say, that even their patience is being tested. But it just sums up the delusion of some of these players, Jack. This is why they've been able to get managers sacked. This is why we've had trouble with new players coming in the door, because it's shown all they're doing is looking after their pockets. They don't care about the football club, and they don't care about the football. They care about they realize they're coming to the end of their career, and they're now trying to line their pockets and make the most out of football. I can understand that to a certain degree, because football has drained everything out of them. They've had to sacrifice so much. More and more games that are rolled out there, more and more more international fixtures, it takes more time away from the families. So I get coming towards the end of the game that players wants to rinse the game for what they can so that they can live comfy with their families and all after. But Jack, this has to come to an end. Is there any wonder we've seen the performances we've seen? And then the pressures around managers, and these guys don't fight. They lie down, they cower, and let the manager get sacked because it means they have another new chance at Tottenham. But most importantly, for this new rebuild, for the new leadership in the squad, but most importantly for Ange Postecoglou and the fans, these guys have to go. These aren't just any ordinary silent members of the football club. These were huge influential figures over a decade at this football club. And they're still going to have some current friends within and around that squad. And all it takes is a couple of results to go the wrong way or a couple of players to be dropped. And then they fall in with these guys, and then all of a sudden you get a mutiny against the manager. It's imperative these guys leave this summer. And for me, if I was Hugo, I'd want to make it as soon as possible so that I do not tarnish the decade I spent in the nets for this football club.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer there. I think Hugo's basically done a lot of things to, kind of ruin and at least kind of tint or damage his reputation here at this football club. And I think for people that are big fans of Hugo, it's sad to see. I've always not really been the kindest to him, or I've always kind of seen him maybe in a different light than others have. But at the end of the day, I do respect how many good games he has put in for this football club. And I think that's kind of being ruined in a way. And that a lot of people are probably now sort of more towards my side of things on kind of the Hugo situation. I don't really know if that should be the case. I think Hugo probably could have done, a bit better in trying to save his reputation and his legacy here at this football club. But like you say there, maybe, I don't know, I think it falls maybe more on Hugo in this case. I think Hugo doesn't really have, clearly much of a reality check going on. If he's not getting many offers that he would prefer to be a first-team goalkeeper, then he has to just accept the circumstances that maybe the rest of Europe just don't really rate him, to be their first-choice goalkeeper. It also could be the case, too, that he's not really willing to, concede enough, with wherever he wants to go. Maybe he's being offered choices in, Saudi Arabia, but he doesn't want to go there. Maybe he's being offered, some first team options at other clubs, but they're only offering him really slow wages or really, low wages, should I say, and he's not taking it. So I don't know. I think in Hugo's case, it's pretty much on him. I think Spurs have pretty much done all that they can. I know there was that one rumor that maybe they were looking for a fee, but I don't know. I think they've been pretty much doing all that they can to try to ship him out the door, and I think Hugo's just been very picky, I guess, about his options. So I guess that's just on him, and I hope
Jack,
I hope he someday
Jack,
did.
Hugo.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But Jack, Hugo he's got 1 year left on his contract. So even if the club say, look, we won't command a fee, we'll let you go for free, there's nothing stopping Hugo turning around and going, well, he's on what, 100, 150 grand a week. So that works out at what, 1.2 million, if not a bit more over the course of the year, probably more. I mean, he ain't going to walk away from that money. He probably want at least a percentage of that money paid up, despite the club willing to let him go for free, especially at 36 years of age, right?
Yeah. I think Hugo, at the end of the day, even if he's an older player that, wants to just see out the rest of his contract for the money and everything like that, I just think that ruins pretty much a lot of his reputation at Spurs, and that's sort of the difference. I think if you're just a guy that has been alienated by the fan base and a guy that maybe wasn't well loved, you could see how sometimes players do that sort of resentment, type of move where they do end up sticking around because it's kind of a big of an FU, I guess, to the fans in a way. But I don't think Hugo needs to do that. And if Hugo does end up doing that, I think that just damages his reputation further. He doesn't seem to be a guy that should throw himself into that type of camp, and I think that would be some bad damage towards him. On to Eric Dyer, though, Dave, just onto another guy that's, making it very difficult on us to leave. He had some quotes that have sort of surfaced. These are quotes from a while ago. They haven't just come out. I think Alistair Gold sort of released these quotes recently, but they have, come over, I guess, the time when he was sort of at the club or sort of on preseason, should I say. And he said, yeah, I'm planning on being here. I can control playing well, being fit, training well, and playing well. He emphasized that twice. Those are the things I can control. Those kind of things, being contract talks, are something that involve other people, ones that I cannot control. So there needs to be some mutuality there. I can't speak for the other side and whether Spurs want to give me a new deal. All I can say is, look, I'm going to do what I can do, control what I control, and try to have a great season. Well, clearly he can't control him playing well, Dave, because if he could control himself playing well, then he probably wouldn't be as, pretty much number one on the list of, people that Spurs fans want to get out of the club. And he probably wouldn't be, I guess, shown the door by Ange Postecoglou if he could actually control playing well, because he wouldn't have made a better impression, I guess, on the guy. I don't know. It's just more kind of senseless Moonhead quotes from me because I really don't get it in his case because he is, kind of seen as sort of this passionate leader, this guy that's, one of the sort of the good eggs, around the club and everything. But if he's just taking this kind of blind approach to it all, where Ange has basically made it clear to him, he doesn't want him around. The fans are kind of making it clear that they don't want him around. Pretty much the club is listening to Ange, so they're kind of showing him that they don't really want him around much longer. And he's sort of kind of just closing his ears and, closing his eyes and just saying, yeah, I'll do my best to try to still get into the team no matter what. I don't know, Dave. It's not really the classy Eric Dyer that you and I were, always told exists, by some of the Dyer propaganda team. So I'm not sure really here what's going on here. I just think Dyer's sort of showing his true colors. I really do think he's showing his true colors with some of this.
First of all, I'm not surprised by the comments. I mean, look, I liken it to very much the Harry Maguire situation at Man United, right? No one wants him around. Fans, coaches, managers. No one wants him around. They're trying to sell him, but they just won't go anywhere. They don't want to go anywhere, and they're trying to hold on to something that just isn't there. The fact that he says he can control playing well. Okay, where was that the last 9 years then, Jack? What, locked away in a safe? Honestly, it's absolutely ridiculous. He talks about passion. The guy wouldn't find passion on Love Island. I'm absolutely sick of this guy. I'm sick of him. He is holding on to something that's not there. And the thing is, he talks about controlling things. He's been in control of his career the last 8 years, and he's failed. He just doesn't understand, and all he's doing is holding the club back, and all it's doing is making me resent him even more, and even more, and even more. It's absolutely mindless. But am I surprised about these delusional comments from the guy?
No, you can't be.
No, I'm not, Jack.
No, you can't.
I remember Jose Mourinho was asked, why did you drop Dyer out of the team? Now, George turns around, he highlighted a massive mistake against Chelsea, Liverpool. There's one against West Ham and one more team, all within the space of like a month and a half. All of a sudden, come the end of the season, Jose gets sacked. They go and interview Dyer. At the end of the season, Dyer goes, well, I don't really know what all the fuss was about me this season. I think I've been playing pretty well. And there within lies your problem. The guy's delusional. He thinks he is a rock star. My dad said this to me today, and he's absolutely spot on. He thinks he's Harry Kane. He thinks he's unbelievable. In his mind, he thinks he should be going for 100 million. He should be on 200K a week. He's absolutely delusional. I encourage everybody, go back and look at quotes this guy said. I've read them all, and this is why I get so annoyed by the guy, because he's so delusional.
Yeah,
you just can't admit to his errors, to his mistakes. Come and say, I want to be better. I'm going to do better. I want to try. He's so. I'll let you take it over, Jack. I'm just going to go. He fails
to get to grip with his own mistakes and his own reality here. And I think, any player can understand that, they're not, Beckenbauer or, the next Lothar Matthäus or whatever, right? Like, players can understand they're not the greatest in the world, but he really does seem to have no sort of sense of his own mistakes. And even just in those quotes as well, from the same article from Alistair Gold, he said that he had played well in this last 6 months of this most recent season. He said the first 6 months of that season, he said he was playing some of the best he's ever played in his career. And it's like he's just adding 3 or 4 months or something like to that form. Like he started playing like garbage since October. He was garbage. He cost us the season in October with some of his form and some of his mistakes. And he's talking about him playing well for that first 6 months of the season. And then he backed it up by saying the previous 6 months to that, towards the end of the Conte tenure, he said that was also some of the best 6 months he's ever played in his career. The guy is just inflating as well as making up times when he was playing well when he wasn't, and even also just sort of hyper, exaggerating, I think, even his own form. Like, even when you hear Christian Romero talk about his own time at Tottenham, you don't hear him talk about, like, how great he was, during this time and that time. Like, it just seems like he's just trying his best to sort of paint the best picture of himself. And I understand that people do that in life, but he does it in a way that I do think is just, at some stage, sort of delusional. And I do sort of ask myself as well, if Dyer if he's sticking around for financial reasons, or if he's sticking around to sort of kind of stick it to the club in some way, I think that again ruins his reputation amongst a lot of the people that were big Dyer propaganda supporters, that he was this leader, this guy that, was one of the sort of good eggs around the club and everything like that. Because if he really did care about his own career, if he really did care about, his own football and his own kind of his pathway, he would accept that he doesn't have a future here, and he would accept that Ange has shown him the door, the fans have shown him the door, and Daniel Levy and the club have shown him the door, but he's not accepting that right now. And kind of one more thing though, Dave, on that is I do feel like he did say in an interview as well in this same article that he thinks his best years are ahead of him, because he said he thought that Jan and Toby Alderweireld, their best years were around the 29 to 31 range. He said so he thinks these are his best months ahead. So why on earth then is he content with sitting on the bench for the rest of this season? If he thinks his best years are ahead, why would he waste the next 12 months sitting on the bench? I mean, that just goes against what he's just said there, in my opinion. I think he's just a walking imposter. And I probably don't sound like this most of the time, in the podcast or anything like that, but genuinely those quotes, and I understand they came from a while ago, like earlier in the summer, but with the context of everything that's happening today, they couldn't have been more well-timed, and they genuinely make me angry. They do make me angry, because he has painted a picture of himself that is just delusional, in my opinion. But, Dave, any kind of final words on Dyer, and
honestly,
then we'll solve the solution? Sorry.
I think you're absolutely spot on, Jack. And one thing you said there where he's talking about, well, I played good in this period, in that period. Okay, you've been at the club 9 years. Why are you only pulling out periods? Look, Harry Winks is gone. Look how much the midfield has improved. Just do the same with this idiot, please. I'm sick of him.
Yeah.
He's deluded. You can't help. You can't coach someone that's that deluded, Jack.
No.
Because for him, managers are on the training pitch going, right, I think you need to work on this. No, I don't. I'm going in for tea. I'm Beckenbauer. I'm sick of it. Just move on. Move on. I'm sick of him.
And maybe this is how we can move on here, Dave. What should you do with the Deadwood if they don't want to leave, right? So we've given them, Daniel Levy and the club have given them moves away from the club, right? They've given them those options. So they're not accepting that. So we just have to, I think there are three things that basically the club can do and what Ange can do. They can rip up the contract, drop them to the under-23s, or reintegrate them into the team. I think the last one is probably one that we're not going to be picking. But for Lloris, Dyer, and let's say Tanguy and Ndombele, Dave, what would you do, if you're the club? They're not accepting moves away, so what do you do? Which one do you rip up the contract? Which one do you just send to the under-23s? What do you do in that situation?
Jack, just go to them, offer them all 80-90% of what's left on their contract, take the hit, so that we can just move on. Because if we don't, we're going to have to loan them out, or we're going to have to, leave them down in the under-23s, and they're just still going to be around. They're still going to be around fighting the place. And all you're going to keep seeing is new cycle. You're never, ever fully going to rebuild. People say, get Kane out of this club so we can rebuild. Okay, show me the same energy for Dyer, Hugo Lloris, and Ndombele, and then show me the same for all of them. Every single one of them. Let's have the same gusto to getting these guys out the club.
Yeah.
But you won't, because all you'll hear is, they're nobodies. No, they are. They've had a huge hold on this football club, and they've all got to go. For me, Jack, you offer them 70-80% what's left on the contract. If they don't want to accept that, you go, Tony the gardener are looking for 3 employees, 3 helpers. So come in tomorrow in Dungarees. Yeah. That's where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a new, Daniel Levy's, hosting a new banquet, so we need actually some polishers, for the glass or, something like that. Exactly, right. Moondog is thrown in here, a super chat. He says, Dyer is everything bad about this club. Get him out. His stench drifts right through the club. What's most frustrating here, Moondog, is something that I've been worried about this whole summer, and I've kind of alluded to it a few times. What if the club accept the bids and are presenting these players opportunities to leave, but the players just aren't taking them? In that situation, there's only so much the club can do, because the player is actually making it difficult on them. It's making it difficult on the manager. They're basically stalling the whole process. So that means you have to make, as a club and as a manager, a very public and kind of, harsh decision of either ripping up the contract, sending them down to the under-23s to embarrass them, or do something else in some way to sort of make it clear that they are not making it easy on you to move them out of the club. And that's never pretty. It's not what the club ever wants. So I just feel like, I don't know, it makes you think that it's crazy to me. I just think it's a situation where Spurs. I think I actually sympathize with them in this situation, because if we have three guys, they're making it hard on you to leave like this. It's just you have to think about then ripping up contracts or sending them to under 23s, but that's never easy, right? That's not what you envision. You actually expect both parties to be mature and kind of be faithful about it and sort of honor the contract and everything in it, and also on both sides, right? I understand Spurs gave these players the contracts, but in the case of Lloris, he made it quite obvious he wanted to leave. Dyer, has probably been here quite a long time. I mean, the fact that he still wants to get another year out of it is a bit crazy. Tanguy and Dembele has never been good enough for this club, and it's never put in enough good performances. You sort of think there should be also good faith on the player side here on trying to, make it easy for both parties, but they're not. They're dragging their heels, and they're making it difficult for us. It's hard. Yeah.
But also, Jack, the club have to stop playing tiddlywinks with them in the press. Ange Postecoglou gets asked, okay, why is Dyer being left out your last two match day squads? Injuries. Stop. Just come out. Just simply. And look, it's probably Daniel Levy won't let him do it, but Daniel Levy just needs to say, Ange Postecoglou, next time you get asked about them, make it 1,000% clear they are no longer part of your plans and they should look for an exit. Put it out there in the press. Put it out there in the public. I don't care if it pisses these guys off, because they've given no decent service to Tottenham Hotspur. So it's maybe in Hugo Lloris's case is a little bit different, but Ndombele, Eric Dyer, no problem. They should be out there in the press going, these guys have no future at Tottenham Hotspur. They will not get a squad number this year, and I'm telling them now they should instruct their agents to leave. Once you do that in a public forum like that, watch how quickly they get out of here, Jack.
Yeah. Appreciate your support, Moondog, and I hope you have enjoyed the members only podcast, because it's been nice just to see you guys kind of following along as Dave and I are kind of trapped in this little elevator together, just ranting and raving at Spurs as we usually do. So really do appreciate you guys tuning in and keeping up with it. But we're moving on to our last topic on this one. It is going to be a shorter one just for the sake of time, for Dave and what he has going on for the rest of the day as well. But again, everybody, really do appreciate you all tuning in, and this is the one on the thumbnail, so I hope maybe we can have a deeper conversation in the future on kind of a debate show of some kind too. But when you think about it, the leadership group has changed, I think, Dave, right? Last season, we were told that the leadership group was Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Harry Kane, I think Højbjerg was in there as well. Skippy, we were also told, kind of had a bit of a say. A lot of these players, bar Skip, pretty much have either gone or don't really have a future here at this club any longer. So there is a bit of a new leadership group in here, and a lot of guys that are stepping into new roles are kind of taking on, kind of different sort of role within the dressing room, are kind of establishing, you could say, a new kind of culture around the dressing room as well, just how they sort of act with each other, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the manager. And I don't know. I think it's all for the better, because we spoke about for a long time, there's something rotten within this club. There's something rotten within that dressing room. There are players in there that have power that shouldn't have power. There are players in there that aren't responsible or aren't acting like they're accountable for their own mistakes. We even said there's a leadership issue as well, because you and I didn't have confidence in Hugo as a captain, even though we both loved Harry Kane. We sort of also thought, like, well, is Harry Kane even, the best captain? And then the other option was, I think, like an Eric Dyer, basically. So it really wasn't, great choices. It felt like for the captaincy. Now, this new sort of list of Romero, Madison, Sonny, maybe even Basuma you could throw in there too as kind of a bit of a leadership figure of some kind. I don't know, Dave. I think this is kind of what we wanted, and it's a conversation we had time and time again over podcasts and debate shows in the past, but maybe this is a step in the right direction. Ange, I think, has pulled off a masterclass here.
100% it's a step in the right direction. Look, Jack, I liken it back to when Pochettino first came in. You had similar situations that we have now with Dyer and Ndombele, with the likes of Adebayor and other players back then on huge wages, not contributing, but having a huge sway and dictation in and around the changing room. And, Pochettino, over time, he got rid of the likes of Adebayor. He started bringing through the likes of Bentaleb, Mason, Kane, sprinkled with some other players in and around. He went and got Dele Alli, brought him through. And what you've seen then is a lot of Tottenham players that maybe had careers elsewhere that were on Tottenham on big money, pissing about, not really committed, this, that, and the other. Pochettino ended up getting rid of them. That means he ended up completely changing the squad around, but also the leadership within that squad. And why he done it is that the reason why he went after young, hungry players, Jack, is because they're impressionable. You can tell them to jump and they'll say how high. They want to make it. They've got that hunger to win trophies and get to the top. Whereas what we had before that were a lot of players coming towards their end of their career, maybe not having the same hunger, the same desire, etc., etc. So when you look at it now, our recruitment over the last couple of years have been strategic. 25 or under. A lot of the recruitment, we've lowered the average age of the squad by 3 years. A lot of the leftovers and hangovers from the previous regime, which were the worst parts of Pochettino's squad, are all starting to be filtered out of the squad now. Hugo Lloris there last year, gone now. Ben Davies was a starter last year, now he's not a starter. Dyer was there last year, he's nowhere near the squad now. So you're seeing a lot of sort of the hangovers or the worst parts of that squad with the
Yep.
with the shit mentality all leaving, with a lot of new guys, young, hungry, all coming in. But what's more impressive and what really excites me about it is I'm just getting results quicker than what Pochettino did. And that's what makes me really excited. I'm just getting results from the off straight away. Pochettino came in, gave guys chances, this, that, and the other, nearly to his own detriment until Harry Kane scored that deflected free kick against Aston Villa, which in effect
Oh,
Postecoglou was smelt rat straight away. Out, out, out. Nowhere. And it really, really excites me, Jack. Where so-called leaders were playing. Now they're not out of the team. Look how better things look. And that's why I've been talking about the guys the way I did in campaign, not campaigning, but so adamant I'm shifting them out because they were never technically good enough to play for a club like Tottenham Hotspur, but also B, mentally they weren't good enough to play at the top level of football either. So for me, look, I think we're seeing a massive benefit of a lot of change, Jack.
I think we are seeing benefit of a lot of change here. And I mean, you think about it, some of these guys that have been stepped into kind of new leadership roles had to listen to some of the previous leaders. Like, look at Romero, right? He had to bow down or listen to an Eric Dyer or a Ben Davies and had to listen to Hugo Lloris, guys that he probably started to lose a bit of trust in, start to lose a bit of faith in. Even Sonny, I guess, was in some way maybe not a part of that leadership group. And I'm not sure if he had any sort of distaste towards that, but he probably felt like from time to time, maybe he wished he had a say. Maybe he wished he was able to say something. Maybe, especially we saw that in the case of Hugo Lloris, he and him kind of butted heads once or twice. And maybe there is maybe something to say that Sonny maybe once or maybe some opportunities wanted to, have his say and wanted to be taken seriously and have people listen to him. And Madison is kind of a whole new kind of mentality kind of injected into the dressing room, whereas Romero and Sonny are still kind of from the past. Madison is just a whole new player, a whole new idea, whole new kind of way of looking at things, perspective, and everything. That's only can be good. And I think part of the way that also Ange has struck kind of a bit of or he's done a masterstroke here is I feel like Romero, right? He represents a certain probably part of the squad. He represents a lot of the Spanish speakers. He also represents the defense, right? He stands up for the defense. He stands up for Van de Ven, stands up for Vicario, stands up for Udoji, stands up for Emerson, stands up for a lot of the guys that, he plays alongside, but also kind of acts as a bit of an ambassador, as well as just the kind of the spokesperson for a lot of the South Americans and the Spanish speakers within the squad. So I think that's actually a really good move there by Ange. And also, like we said before, and plenty have said, gives Romero that sense of responsibility that maybe he's always needed in his game because it allows him to maybe think about things a bit more instead of just sort of acting on impulse, because Romero is a bit unhinged and maybe when he gets maybe angry or frustrated, he will do something out of frustration or anger. And now that he has the responsibility of being a leader as well as being a guy that's supposed to lead by example, he might not always now do some of those maybe rash sort of decisions or rash challenges as much because he knows that people do look up to him. When you look at Sonny, I feel like he's sort of always been seen as, kind of a player that everybody looks up to. But now that he has this captaincy role, it's almost like he can represent maybe the final piece of one of the players of the past that were some of those world class players that Spurs had. Kane has gone, Lloris has gone. You have Moussa Dembele, has left. Eriksson has left. Dele Alli in his prime, is no longer, and all those sort of kind of guys. Walker, Vertonghen, and Alderweireld, right? Sonny is the very last one from that era of when Spurs were at their best. So I could see why he's also been named captain, because he knows what it was like when Spurs were, playing in some of the biggest matches, and he can, train some of his, teammates to prepare for that in the right way. But then he also knows what it's like to see Spurs at their worst, right? He doesn't have the sort of like blind, kind of idea of what Spurs are. He's seen us at our worst, and he's seen us at our best, and he's from that old era. So I think that can only be good for a guy like Sonny, and I think it's good to see that maybe he can now get a bit more respect, as well as just be seen, kind of in a different light than maybe he was previously by his teammates. I think they're not just going to see him as kind of the world-class winger that's, really friendly and, kind of one of the best friends around the squad. I think they're going to see him as one of the best friends, but a guy that they have to take seriously as well. And I think he's been there and done that with, Spurs as well as Korea. So it's good to have a guy that's maybe captain that's not, around the 23, 24, 25 range, that still has plenty more left to do in his career. It's good to see a guy that's captain that, has actually done a lot in his career, that has that sort of experience on his side. And like I said, I think with Maddison, I think it's only a good thing to have a guy with a whole new mentality brought into the team. I think that only breeds good things, and only means that the leadership sort of culture and the whole kind of leadership, around the squad can change for the good. Because I remember plenty of people just said, how are we going to fix this leadership if, the guys like Hugo, Dyer, and the rest of them stick around? And now that they're gone, and they've been replaced with new guys, as well as guys that, have been brought in through the transfer market, I think we're going to see a huge change in this culture around the squad. And I think that's why everybody's so happy, and why everybody looks so kind of, fit and, firing and working, to work under Ange. I think it's all because, there's been a huge changeover and a huge turnover in that leadership group. And that was kind of, that's something I want to touch on later, though, and talk about with other people, other than just ourselves, because I think it's an important thing for sure, Dave.
And Sean are on tomorrow, so we can chat about it more then.
Absolutely. Maybe finish off with the last but not least, the bonus section here, everybody. And I really do appreciate you all for... Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
We're going to have to wrap it up, Jack. I'm already 7 minutes late.
Okay. Well, everybody, I think we'll wrap it up there. Members, do really appreciate your support. We're trying a bit of an experiment here with doing this as a live podcast. Thank you all for tuning into this one, and apologies, it's a bit of a shorter one, just a bit of a different schedule, but we will be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. In the big hands we trust, we never stop.
See you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.